This is your weekend market recap for Sunday, April 30th, 2023. Let's go. Hey everyone, this is my channel to help investors and traders develop a probability-based mindset to succeed. Also try and keep friends informed of what's going on in the markets and the economy, and also a little real estate content as well.
This is Dan Max at XP Realty, aka The Trading Agent. This is your weekend market review for Sunday, April 30th, 2023. Hopefully you had a good week. Lots of up and down, as we've talked about. It's a trader's market, end of month markup, pretty intense based on some of the economic data. Let's try to unpack everything. Please get comfortable, grab a coffee, have a snack, some water, and let's get into it. So we know going into this week, we have the FOMC meeting, we've got more earnings. Overall, you got a lot of economic data. I mean, it's just going to be one of those weeks where I think people have to be well aware of what's happening, and meaning there's no guarantees, right? I would expect the market probably takes a small siesta, relaxes, chops out for maybe, I don't know, probably Monday, Tuesday before the FOMC, and then whatever the Fed say, which again, we'll get into why I think it's about 100% locked that they're going to raise rates, and then you have Apple's earnings. So anyway, it just kind of is one of those, is what it is. And so how do we know what the reaction is going to be? We really don't, right? Talk about markets bottoming, topping during OPEX for the first and last 3 business days of the month. This has been a sloppy, choppy mess, and it's hard to know for sure what's next. But if you've been following the channel, you know you've been trading around your positions, managing them. Again, even if you weren't perfect about managing your positions, you took profits, you reloaded, you took profits, you managed them, you feel better about the action, even though it was pretty crazy Thursday, Friday. So if you're new to the channel, please follow. Check out the Discord room. Link is in the description below. Hit me up on Twitter. Always drop in dimes about what I think is important, some of the stuff that's going on, trades that we're up to. And again, go by tradingagent.com. A lot of people who've been hitting me up about this, again, trying to give people some insights about the markets. And then, again, the Back to Basics series, starting from more beginner to more advanced videos. If you have questions, please reach out. Again, I appreciate all the love, support, donations. Hit me up on YouTube. Please hit a follow, like, subscribe. I'm telling you, it's well worth it if it even reloads. Typically do 2 to 3 live chats a week. At worst, help out with that. And again, if you have questions, ask. Again, students ready, the teacher appears. You know, I can't promise anyone anything, but I know for a fact that I'm here to help. And if I can, again, it's one of those things where people who appreciate knowledge shared, value, because again, experience, you can't teach it. You know, you can read 1,000 books and you can watch Drunken Miller and you can watch and study the pros and the best, but you know, execution is the key. Psychology, understanding, repeating patterns. It just never ends. All right, here's the Fed Fund futures. If you don't have this link, save this. Expecting a rate hike next week, guaranteed. Like, it's just guaranteed. Quarter, maybe 50. I doubt they'll do 50. I think it'll be a quarter. Bitcoin, we've talked about it needing to hold around 27,000. So far, so good. It's just chopping. Bulls and bears, no one's really sure here, because this is the thing. At this point, we're into resistance, right? Well, the longer you stay higher and tight, the better for bulls. Just keep an eye, like on a lower high, and you got to take out the levels. That's how you confirm. And just then, even when you confirm, you have to be careful of traps, right? So just be aware. Like, the market is going to do what it's going to do, and it's going to be hard. That's the thing about people trying to realize, is like day trading, trying to predict every day, every action, difficult. Oil, talked about it bouncing probably down here in the mid 70s. Well, look at that. Fills the gap. We still anticipate OPEC to do even more cuts. They're going to try to raise the floor, in my opinion, of oil in a recession. And they know the U.S. is in a pickle, right? They know we got to buy oil and fill our SPR. Natural gas, I've said it over and over and over and over again. I mean, the levels make sense. I just don't know when it's going to start rallying. I don't really have much trust in it, because I think commodities will be pretty volatile, because you're going into what? Volatility, potentially, dollar rising, potentially not. But even if the dollar doesn't rise, if the market starts selling off, they can throw the baby out with the bathwater. Dollar, as we talked about for weeks, chopping, got to get over the 20-day. Interesting close. You need more information. That's how I look at that. TLT, we've talked about trading in a big range. Bonds getting bought, rates going lower. We'll see. It's just chopping. Now, will the rates move with the Feds? That's the key, right? That's what we need to see. They might not. They could be range bound for a while. The VIX, unreal. I mean, I warned people last week, when the first VIX spike usually is followed by a pullback. I didn't see new lows in the VIX. I am absolutely dumbfounded. Again, I've never recommended buying UVXY. I like shorting that when the VIX spikes. But man, it's just like getting to the point where this is rather redonkulous, right? And this is the thing, when we look at the monthly, people go, how do you know the market hasn't bottomed? Well, for sure don't know anything, but based on repeating patterns, we should see somewhere in the mid 40s, upper 40s at worst to capitulate a choppy bear market. I would think at some point we probably get into 80s and 90s because I think there's a lot of crap going on. And excuse my language, but that's just, I mean, that's my opinion on. Like, I don't think we're not out of the minefield. I feel like we're whistling past the graveyard, but that's what the market's really good at. So, talked about the VIVIX last couple of weeks. Like, it bottomed, popped. Here you go, making a higher low as the VIX is making a new low. Rather interesting. Keep an eye on it. SPY. Here you go. Pop, chop, flop. Talked about it holding down here. Remember? Did not expect this big of a rip, but now you are. You're right back up at the highs. Check the monthly out, because again, the monthly is now going to be over. Look at that. Closes right at the 20-month. Do we wick before we flop? That's the question, right? In my mind, it's now just as likely as not as it is, right? We thought we might break down, but man, look at this action. I mean, this is just getting confusing, right? And confusion is part of the game. Again, if the market's trying to make the most money, take the most amount of money from the most amount of people, confusion happens. So watch these upper levels and bounds, the Qs rallying on some of these earnings, falling on some of these, right back up near the range high. Same thing on the monthly. I don't need to show it. It's literally the 20-month. Keep an eye on it. Because again, it's interesting how the leadership is just narrowing so much. It's just a few tech names that are leading the market, essentially. IWM, we talked about lagging, but also what did we say last week? Don't be surprised if it holds down here. Look at that bounce. Watch the 20-day. That's what I'd be watching. DIA, not surprised it rallied some too, right? Here you go. Holding, chopping in this range. Just keep an eye on it. Gold, I'm not bearish long-term. Near-term, I'm telling people just be careful. This high and tight, though, chop isn't bearish. But if it turns over, takes out certain levels, adios, amigos. Silver, same thing. Gets up to the highs, chops, pulls back. Just sideways. GDX. Now, this is where I get a little nervous because the miners, again, they typically do crappy during earnings, but we'll see what they say with the Feds below the 20-day. Chopping has to hold the 33 area. GDXJ been leading down, making lower lows, right? Under the 20-day. That's a little precarious because, again, the juniors should lead the seniors, right? AG, 50-day seems so far like it could be a bounce spot, but again, it went ripping higher, pulls back. You're holding, I guess, I mean, let's just call it what it is. Holding support, right? It is what it is. It bearish, bullish, just keep an eye on it. Again, even if you don't want to, I get it too. AEM, yikes. Big gap up, pop and flop. There must have been some earnings stuff on them, I'm assuming, but that's not a bullish reaction. Newmont, we've talked about this for weeks, like just lagging. Can't even get up to the January highs. Chopping here at the lows. PAAS, talked about this one, hitting the 18-19s. Pulling back. Okay, back test the trend line. Looks bullish near term, but again, if you're not familiar, the market knows how to paint charts. It knows how to get people to be confused. That's why you never know with anything for certain. That's why I try to warn people. Like, as soon as you feel comfortable, be uncomfortable. Like, trust nothing. Like, trust your instincts to just manage your position and be thoughtful, again, because you don't know anything for certain. Because once you start believing your own hype, that's the problem. AM Dizzle, are we surprised it bounced? No, we talked about holding in this mid-80s. Look at that. Not surprised Semi's got a little bit of a bounce. Micron, this is interesting. Like, this thing is all over the place. Look at this thing. Like, back up into the top of the chop zone. Could it hit the alarm and be like, what's the alarm? It's the basically top of the ranges from the weekly. Here, I'll show it to you. Because again, this is going on for years. This area matters. So keep an eye on it. 65 level as well could be very pertinent and important. Taiwan Semi, one that we talked about, lagging, lag. Yeah, that's been lagging like a dog. Hits the 200-day. Okay. Trying to fill the gap. We'll see. NVIDIA, chopping over the 20-day. Not great for bears. Could it chop? Could it pull one more? And now again, could it trap and then go? Again, this thing's been on fire. It's tough to know for sure, but people buying this for the long term up here, high as a kite in my opinion. Intel, look at this gap up on earnings and then close at the lows. It doesn't really look that good. SMH, we talked about the 250 level being important. Well, here, let's just pull it over. I mean, you could, let me see. I mean, I think you could probably just, for short-term purposes, say this 249, 250. Keep an eye on it. I mean, we talked about it probably holding here. Look at that long wick coming right back. Is it temporary? That would be my opinion. Adobe, chopping, slopping. Talked about M pattern. Look at that, all over the place. I mean, this feels like this feels like the bucking bronco thought process of like bulls, bears getting just cut up everywhere, each side, and that's sometimes what the market does. Apple rising into earnings, very dangerous in my opinion. It's getting kind of silly, stupid. And so making new highs is just manage your positions. You can be wrong. Again, we don't know if it needs like this pop and flop. But again, in my mind, personally, there is that gap there right around the 171. Do we have to fill it? Let's just draw it so it's there so you can see it. It's always, anything is possible, right? Like you just have to be cognizant of that, right? And when you're right, let things run. And if you're wrong, get out as fast as possible. Here with Apple, personally think it's probably better to wait till earnings or it's so hard with earnings on Thursday afternoon and the FOMC because the Wednesday, Thursday now of this week are really all that matters. If you're paying attention to this, the Monday, Tuesday, again, watch the video Back to Basics on FOMC meetings, and it's going to be last business days. I mean, I can't wait till the next weekend's recap to really go through all this because it might be pretty up and down all over. And again, it could be bull trap, bear trap. We don't know. Amazon, earnings, pops, flops, not surprised. Fills gap, backs off. Again, I personally think Megatech is going to get crushed at some point, but it's, again, like, will it dump until Apple? I don't know. CRM, talked about the 200 level. It's just chopping, slopping, chopping. Guggenheim, people don't probably get excited about chop and slop, but that's the hard part, right? Chopping, right? Holding 108s. Could you get up? Yeah, anything's possible. Meta, their earnings were absolute crap. But this is why I always tell people, like, you don't know for sure how the market's going to react to earnings. Like, just think about that. Like, I've said that 100,000 times. Gaps up. It feels like a novice gap trap, but could it do something like this again, where it takes a couple days? Just be cognizant of your own, of everything going on. Microsoft, look at that, makes new highs, fills the gap. This is where it gets real interesting, right? Like, zoom out, right? Like, you've got another gap up here. We're so close, right? Do we fill it? Seems very distinctly possible now. Now, bullish, bearish. Now, again, this is what's crazy is like the market is just funneling into these megatechs. It's not sustainable. Their growth isn't. So, people are honestly overpaying crazy multiples for these stocks, and it's interesting. MicroStrategy earnings on Monday after the close, if I'm correct. Yeah, oh, sorry, NDA. I'm like, wrong one. I pressed the wrong button. Let's go to NDAQ real quick while we're here. Again, we talked about this one being crap, chopping around. Again, the whole exchange for tech is showing you long-term that tech isn't the leader. People hate to hear that, but that's the reality. MicroStrategy hanging out with Bitcoin. If I had to guess into earnings after it's been just mutilated, beaten, I wouldn't be surprised if you get up near 400. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But I also could see it dumping, so just be careful. Netflix, talking about shorting up against the trend line, up against the 340, 350 area. All right, well, if the market's holding up, it's chopping around, it actually doesn't really look that strong. Roblox, we talked about, not good that they said they were going to stop doing monthly guidance. Gaps down, and it's just been straight sailing lower, right? Like, not good. Tesla, all right, we said, hey, we're hitting this new block, the next box, right? We thought it might bounce in here. Well, here you go. It's oversold, right? It goes from 209 to 150, 148, whatever that is. All right. Again, if the market holds up, it should bounce a little bit, but how long? We'll see. Letter X had earnings. Again, these commodity companies, I love them long term, but let them come on down. Love them, love them, love them. Nucor, same thing. They all look, again, commodities coming down should tell you something, right? Chopping, slopping. Caterpillar had earnings. Down, chop, all over. Chop in here, a little bear trap. Could it rally back to 225? Again, it just looks like it's stuck in a range. VALE, global growth name. Again, oversold. Well, the market rises, of course. It probably has a little bit of oomph in it. Arrow, we've talked about this copper name holding up really well. Can't deny it. CCJ, earnings. Again, I didn't even read the report. Wide and loose day, though. All right, fills the gap. Again, I'm not shorting. I've said I would not short material names, but I think they will come down. CF has earnings Monday after the close. Chopping around. We like it at lower prices. Mosaic popped on earnings, gave it all back, chopping around. Not much to say. NTR, man, this thing is back under 70. Not surprised. There's some prices. Again, we'll get into it later when it's necessary, but I think there's some downside prices that'll be interesting. Aaron, talking back to levels that matter, should hold 35. Does it bounce or is it chop? That's the question. XLF, Come on, JP Morgan, pop. We've talked about, I want to see the 130, or sorry, we said 3250, 3350 probably was the chop zone. If we reference, because we shorted the crap out of the XLF. People probably don't remember this, but again, we talked about it. 20-month and then holding here. Why is this area matter? Look, it's 2008 monthly, of course. I mean, if the market isn't tanking, then it's gonna bounce. I think financials will go lower later. JP Mizzle Morgan. Come on, give me a bounce. I'd love to short 140s. Morgan Stanley, same thing. Like these choppies, again, anything in the 90s, watch the chop zones. I mean, they're building a base to flop or chop. It's very simple. Goldman, does it have to get back up here? Sorry. It could. Absolutely could. 350 would be the easier short, in my opinion. So just keep an eye on it. XBI, as we've talked about, right? Like the baby bios have been acting like trash. All right, bouncing. I mean, it should be up here. But also, can you like zoom out? Like, look where we've come from. Like, there's just no love. Remember, baby bios need money. They need to burn through cash like they always do, right? IYT, because people are talking about like, hey, can you check it out? And it's like, yeah, we're chopping around. We're in a big chop zone. You have to take out the 211 to 210 range, whatever. I mean, don't bring a ruler. 212 to 211. That would be my guess. And the monthly looks a little ominous, just chopping around. Transports lead, right? So let's keep an eye on it. So got the materials, financials. Let's get in and yeah, let's wrap it up. Solar. Told y'all solar was gonna get smoked. Tan holding on for life. ENPH earnings, but chopping. I mean, that's just kind of scary. And again, if you see, this is why I try to explain it. Like, solar is based on what? Credits, economics of governments being able to just, run up huge deficits. Well, guess what? I mean, if oil gets slammed and the commodities come down in price, solar is just going to be volatile. And look at this. You're welcome. We told you guys these names are doomed. Sedge, I think, did they have earnings? I can't remember. Yeah, gap down, chopping. First Solar, same thing. Again, I thought it might pop during earnings. Guess what? Didn't. Here you go. Look at this. Long candle, fills the gap. Approximately. Could it bounce? Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for shorts, then I would think the 195 to 200 range now becomes resistance, right? Support becomes resistance. Like, we held these areas, now they will be resistance. Just like, here it is. Like, that's how you draw in the charts. And you can't say anything for certain, but that's what you look for. HYG, check this out, high yielding debt, corporate junk debt. Whew. Really choppy, sloppy, very similar to the market. Just that's why we're watching it. Let's end it with oil. Is that oil? Here you go, chopping, slopping. You're not surprised it was bounce. UNG, again, leave this. I feel like you should just leave this alone, but natural gas at a certain point makes sense. I just can't make sense of it now. XOP, we told people to take profits in the mid 130s, and now you're here. You're below the bigger trend line. I mean, it could just be sloppy and choppy. ExxonMobil earnings popped. Now, again, you can argue good, bad. Just keep an eye on it. Like, if you're bullish, this thing needs to continue higher. That wick to me says be careful because you couldn't close over new highs. Like, where's the demand to take new highs, right? Occidental, we talked about it's been an accident that it hasn't been higher. It's been, Buffett's probably just selling calls unlimitlessly on this. PX Dizzle, talked about this being an ExxonMobil takeout play. That's the rumor. Remember, ExxonMobil usually buys stuff at bad timing. I think they do it because it helps them with their brokerages. They're able to trade around their own stocks, and they know what they're doing. Like, they overpay at the highs, get good deals, again, relative to long term, and know that they help their banker buddies get rich, and they also know too, like, hey, let the stock come in, we'll buy more. Sell, buy high, buy low, sell high. I mean, they're not dummies. This company's been around for hundreds of years. EQT, interesting. They got to give it credit. Like, it is holding up pretty well. Is natural gas about to fly? I don't know. That's tough to know. We'll end it with Flex LNG because, again, this is a name I really like for the long term at some point. I know Congress is loading up on this. Just chopping around. Just chopping. There's really not much to say at this point other than, again, be aware next week there's a ton of economic data with jobs reports on Friday, right? Factory orders on Tuesday, ADP, you got the FOMC on Wednesday. Like, you got to be very careful. And again, this is why I tell people, like, watch the rest of the whole recap, because if you get to this point, sometimes we like to recap everything. And so again, be aware of what? FOMC Wednesday. But sometimes Thursday is the day that matters. This is what has changed about the market, because it used to be Wednesday mattered. Now it's Thursday just as much too. Well, then think about Thursday. You have Thursday and earnings after the close on Apple. Non-farm payroll on Friday. Are the jobs number going to come in weaker? How's the market going to react? So much. So you have to be prepared to trade around your positions. Okay? If you have any questions, please reach out. Always here. If you have any real estate questions as well, like the market is definitely dynamics and real estate is definitely changing. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Always here for you guys. I appreciate the love and support. Just be aware. Like, you can't always be perfect. The goal is to just manage the market the best you can. All right. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, stop by the Discord room. A link is in the description below. Also, if you'd like to help support more free content, the PayPal link is in the description as well. I appreciate your continued support of the channel.